Emily spent every Tuesday morning at a drafting table in a small studio on 12th Avenue in Portland. She had a specific routine: a 2H pencil, cold-pressed paper, one single botanical specimen, usually something from the local florist that was just beginning to wilt. She'd spend hours studying the way a vein in a leaf would taper off into nothing before she ever let the lead touch the page. That was her life. Precision. Observation. Now, that drafting table is in a storage unit in Beaverton. The pencils haven't been sharpened in months. Emily doesn't draw plants anymore. She sent me her notes, along with a series of sketches she made after she woke up in the ICU. They aren't finished. She says she can't finish them because the colors she saw don't exist in our spectrum. It's a clinical account of a cardiac event, but it reads like a map of a place we're all about to walk into. A place that starts with a warning about a prayer she says we shouldn't be praying at all. My hand went heavy first, not the arm, just the hand. I was working on a peony. The pencil felt like a lead pipe. I remember thinking I just needed more coffee. I reached for the mug. My fingers didn't close. They just slid off the ceramic. I heard Cooper's claws on the hardwood. He's my golden retriever. He was whining, low in his throat. That's not like him. He's usually asleep by my feet during my studio hours. I tried to call him. My jaw wouldn't move. The world started losing its edges, like someone had spilled water on a fresh ink drawing and everything was just bleeding into the paper. The white of the paper became the only thing I could see. Then even that went. I wasn't in a tunnel. I was just standing. My feet felt solid, but there was no floor. It was like standing on a layer of gray light. I still had my sketch pad. I don't know how. I was holding it against my ribs. I could feel the spiral binding digging into my skin. It was the only thing that felt real. And then he was there. He didn't arrive. He was just the center of the space. Jesus. He looked at me. His eyes weren't like ours. They were deep, like looking into a well where the water is perfectly still. He looked at my pad. "You're trying to capture the structure," he said. I couldn't speak. My throat felt like it was full of dry sand. I just nodded. He stepped closer. "The structure is changing, Emily. The lines are being redrawn." The way he said my name, it felt like a weight on my shoulders. Not a bad weight, just heavy. I looked down at my paper. The peony was gone. The page was full of a city I'd never seen. Smoke, people running, a figure standing in the middle of it all. "Many will think they are supposed to fix this," he said. I reached out. I wanted to touch the page, to see if the ink was still wet. "Can we?" I whispered. He shook his head. The sadness in his face, it wasn't for the city. It was for the people in it. "They will pray for the strength to stay and fight," he said. He paused. He let the words hang in that gray space. "They shouldn't. That is the one prayer I will not answer. It is the prayer of the disobedient." I didn't understand. My mind went to the sketches I'd done in college. The ones where you spend 40 hours on 1 square inch just to get the shading right. You don't just walk away from that much work. "But we're supposed to stand," I said. My voice sounded small. Jesus looked at the drawing on my pad, the figure in the smoke. "You do not stand against a fire that is meant to burn," he said. His hand moved over the paper. He didn't touch it. But the drawing shifted. I saw groups of people. They were holding books. They were shouting. They looked brave. "Watch," he said. The scene on the paper started to breathe. The people were being surrounded. They were praying. I could hear them. They were asking for victory. They were asking to take the city back. "They are asking me to change my word," Jesus said. His voice didn't get louder. It just got more. I dropped the pad. It didn't fall. It just stayed there, floating in the gray. "I gave the instruction," he said. "I told them to run. When the abomination stands in the holy place, they are to leave. Everything. The house, the field, the life they built." He looked at me again. "But they will stay. They will pray for a way to win, and they will lose everything because they refuse to move their feet." I looked at my hands. They were trembling. I keep trying to find the word for the way the air felt around him. It wasn't air. It was like breathing in graphite. That's the only way I can say it. The air didn't have weight, but it had a texture, like the dust that stays on your fingers after you've been shading with a 4B pencil for too long. I reached for my sketch pad. It was still there, suspended in that gray space. Jesus didn't move his feet, but the gray space shifted. It didn't feel like walking. It felt like the perspective on a drawing was being adjusted. 1 second we were in the void, and the next we were looking down. It wasn't a mountain. It was more like a balcony made of light. Below us, the world was spread out. But it didn't look like the world I know. It didn't look like the rain-slicked streets in Portland or the trees in the gorge. It looked like a technical drawing, millions of lines, intersecting, moving. "Look at the center," Jesus said. His voice was quiet. It reminded me of the way my mentor used to speak when I was about to ruin a piece by overworking it. I looked. There was a city. It was beautiful in a way that made my stomach tighten. The proportions were too perfect. The buildings, the parks. It was like someone had used a ruler on every single curve. "The composition is balanced," I whispered. I was looking at it as an artist. You look for the golden ratio. You look for where the eye is supposed to land. "It is a lie of symmetry," Jesus said. I looked closer. At the very center of the symmetry, there was a man. He wasn't a monster. He didn't have horns. He was wearing a suit that looked like it cost more than my studio apartment. He was standing on a stage. Thousands of people were in front of him. "He looks right," I said. I meant the lines. The way he stood, the way the light hit his face. It was a perfect portrait. "That is the deception," Jesus said. He stepped to the edge of the light. He didn't look at the man. He looked at the people. "In your work, Emily, what happens when you use a pigment that isn't light fast?" I knew that. I've seen it happen. It looks fine when you finish, but then the sun hits it and the color starts to turn. It goes muddy, then it just disappears. "He is a fugitive pigment," Jesus said. He pointed to the man on the stage. The man started to speak. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the effect. The people were leaning in. They weren't just listening, they were absorbing him. "He promises to restore the structure," Jesus said. I watched the lines of the city. They were vibrating. "He's telling them he can fix the world." "Yes," Jesus said. And they want to believe him because they are tired of the chaos. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, right where the heart should be. I remembered the feeling of the ceramic mug slipping through my fingers in Portland. That loss of control. It's the worst feeling in the world. "He looks like a hero," I said. Jesus turned to me. His face was so close I could see the lines around his eyes. He looked tired, not sleepy tired, heart tired. "Most of my people will agree with you," he said. I didn't like the sound of that. "They'll follow him? They will try to use him," Jesus said. He waved his hand over the scene. The perspective shifted again. I saw churches. I saw groups of people I recognized as believers. They weren't running. They were holding meetings. They were printing flyers. They were talking about reclaiming things. "They see the same lines he sees," Jesus said. "They think if they stay and fight, they can save the drawing." I looked back at the man on the stage. For a split second, the drawing flickered, like a layer of tracing paper being lifted. Behind his face, behind the perfect skin and the charismatic smile, there was something else. It wasn't human. It was a series of jagged black strokes. They were sharp, violent. They didn't fit the rest of the composition. "He's rotten," I whispered. My hands went to my throat. I couldn't swallow. "The rot is the foundation," Jesus said. He didn't sound angry. He sounded like a father explaining a tragedy to a child. "But look at what they are praying for, Emily." He opened my sketch pad. The pages started turning on their own. Each page was a different prayer. I could see the words. "Give us the strength to stand. Give us victory over this evil. Help us take back our land." "They sound like good prayers," I said. "I've said prayers like that. Everyone has. You want to be the hero. You want to be the one who doesn't back down." "They are prayers for a battle I never called them to," Jesus said. He closed the pad. The sound was like a gunshot in that quiet space. "When the abomination stands in the holy place, I gave a specific command. It was one word: flee." I looked at the city again. The black lines behind the man were spreading. They were moving into the streets, into the buildings. "But if they leave, they lose everything," I said. I thought about my dog, my pencils, my life in Portland. You can't just walk away from your life with nothing but the clothes on your back. They will lose their lives trying to save their things, Jesus said. He looked at me with such intensity that I had to look away. They are praying for me to bless their rebellion. They call it courage. I call it disobedience. I gripped the binding of my sketch pad so hard the metal bit into my palms. "Is that why you showed me the one prayer?" I asked. Jesus nodded. "The prayer they should be praying is about the timing of their flight. Winter, the Sabbath, the conditions of the escape, not whether or not to go." He looked back at the world. The city was starting to glow with a strange, sickly light. If they wait to pray about whether they should obey, they have already lost the window. I looked at my hand. I thought I saw a smudge of graphite on my thumb. I tried to rub it off, but it wouldn't move. It was under the skin. "Is it close?" I asked. Jesus didn't answer. He just watched the city. "The paint is already drying, Emily," he said. I looked down. My sketch pad was gone. My hands were empty, and I could smell it again. Not the graphite. It was the smell of something burning. I get it now. Sometimes when I'm in the studio, the smell of the fixative spray hits me. That sharp chemical scent that seals the drawing so it can't be changed. I can still smell it. Even now, sitting in this room. It's the smell of a choice that's already been made. The burning smell didn't go away. It got sharper. Like when you accidentally leave a heating lamp too close to a dried specimen and the petals start to curl and turn black. Jesus reached out. He touched the edge of my sketch pad, the one that had reappeared in the air between us. He didn't look at me. He looked at a group of people appearing on the page. "They are preparing for a siege," he said. I looked at the drawing. These weren't the people following the man in the suit. These were people who loved Jesus. I could tell. They had Bibles. They were praying in circles, but they were also stacking crates. They were boarding up windows. Some of them were cleaning rifles. "They're protecting themselves," I said. I thought about my apartment. I have 3 locks on the door. You have to in Portland. You learn to protect what's yours. "They are protecting a ruin," Jesus said. His voice had a rasp to it, like he'd been shouting though he hadn't. I gave them a way out. I told them that when the horror begins, they are to run. Not to the basement, not to the armory, to the mountains. He pointed to a woman in the drawing. She was kneeling. Her face was tight. She was crying. "Listen to her prayer, Emily." I leaned in. The gray space around us seemed to amplify her voice. "Lord," she whispered, "give us the strength to hold this ground. Send your angels to guard our walls. Tell us what to do to win this fight." "She's asking for help," I said. My throat felt tight. I wanted him to answer her. She looked so brave. "She is asking me to bless her suicide," Jesus said. I flinched. The word felt like a slap. "I already told her what to do," Jesus continued. "The instruction is in the book she's holding. Matthew 24. It isn't a suggestion. It's a survival map." He turned the page of my pad. "This is the prayer that will cost them everything," he said. "The prayer for guidance when the command is already clear." I looked at his hands. There were marks there, not glowing, just scars, real tissue. "Why is it so bad to pray that?" I asked. "Because it's a delay," Jesus said. He stepped toward the drawing of the woman. She doesn't want to leave her home. She doesn't want to lose her status, so she stays and prays for guidance. She waits for a sign. She waits for a feeling. But the sign was given 2,000 years ago. He looked at me. His eyes were like 2 dark coals. While she prays about whether she should go, the doors are being locked from the outside. The window is closing. By the time she finishes her prayer, the path to the mountains will be gone. I looked at the woman again. She looked like she was trying to be a hero. In every movie I've seen, the hero is the one who stays, the one who fights against the odds. "The world calls this courage," I said. "The world is wrong," Jesus said. He moved his hand, and the drawing of the siege disappeared. It was replaced by a map, but the map was mostly empty, large sections of white space. "In your illustrations, Emily, what do you call the space around the flower?" "Negative space," I said. "Most people think the negative space is empty," Jesus said. "They think it's a mistake, an unfinished part of the drawing." He traced a line through one of the white sections. "This is where I am calling them, the wilderness, the places that look like nothing to the world, the places that have no value to the man on the stage." I looked at the white space. It looked cold, lonely. "There's nothing there," I said. "I am there," Jesus said. He looked at the white space with a look of such tenderness that I almost couldn't breathe. "I have prepared places, real places, where the bread will be like the manna in the desert, where the water will come from the rock. But you can only get there if you are willing to leave the colored-in parts of the map." He looked at my sketch pad. "Look at the prayer I actually gave them," he said. The words of Matthew 24:20 appeared on the page. "Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath." "They aren't supposed to pray about if they should go," Jesus said. "I already decided that. They are supposed to pray about the circumstances of the escape." He leaned closer. I could feel the heat coming off him. "Emily, tell them, the prayer of 'should I stay and fight' is a prayer of disobedience. It is the ego trying to be a martyr instead of a servant." I looked at the white space on the map. I saw dots appearing. People. They were walking. They had nothing. They looked exhausted. But they weren't being hunted. The black lines of the city couldn't reach them in the negative space. "They look like they're failing," I said. "They are succeeding in the only thing that matters," Jesus said. "They are listening to my voice." He closed the pad. "The time is coming when the most spiritual thing a person can do is run. Not because they are afraid, but because I told them to." I looked at my feet. The gray light was thinning. I could see the outlines of my studio floor underneath. I saw a pencil, my 2H. "I don't want to go back," I said. I didn't say it with emotion. I just stated it, like a fact about a drawing. "You have to," Jesus said, "because many will think their strength is their weapon. They need to know their strength is their exit." He put his hand on my shoulder. "Remember the negative space, Emily. That's where the real drawing is." And then the gray started to flood with a cold, harsh light. I can still feel it. Even now, sitting here in Portland, I find myself standing up and walking to the door. I don't know why. I'll be in the middle of a meal or brushing my teeth, and my body just moves. I find myself standing at the entrance of my apartment, hand on the deadbolt. My heart isn't racing. I'm not scared. It's just my legs. They feel like they're waiting for a signal, like they've already practiced the first 3 miles of a trip I haven't taken yet. My body remembers the direction of the mountains. It remembers that the room I'm in is just a sketch that's about to be erased. I'm just waiting for the ink to hit the page. The gray light didn't just fade, it sharpened. It became so clear it hurt to look at. Like when you step out of a dark studio into the high noon sun on Burnside Street, and everything is just too much. I was still holding the spiral binding of my pad. My knuckles were white. "Look at the final layer," Jesus said. I didn't want to look. I wanted to go back to the negative space. The white parts of the map felt safe, but the perspective was shifting again. We weren't looking at the city anymore. We were looking at a horizon that had no end. The armies were there. I saw the black lines from before, the ones behind the man in the suit. They had grown. They weren't just lines anymore. They were like a thick, oily ink that was trying to cover the entire page. It looked like a drawing that had been ruined by someone who didn't know when to stop. "Is this the war?" I asked. I expected noise. I expected the sound of metal and screaming. "It is the correction," Jesus said. His voice was steady. It was the sound of a master artist looking at a mistake that can't be fixed with an eraser. A mistake that has to be washed away so the paper can be used again. Then I saw him. Not the Jesus standing next to me, but a version of him that made the gray light look like a shadow. He was on a horse. The horse wasn't white like paint. It was white like the sun. Its eyes weren't eyes. They were flames. Real, licking heat. "Watch the breath," Jesus whispered. The figure on the horse didn't pull a sword. He didn't charge. He just spoke. I couldn't hear the word. It wasn't for me to hear, but I saw it move. It was like a gust of wind hitting a charcoal drawing. The black lines, the armies, the man in the suit, the perfect city with its fake symmetry. They didn't fight back. They couldn't. They just lifted. They peeled off the surface of the world like dried flakes of bad pigment. They turned to dust and were gone. "It's over," I said. I felt a strange hollowness in my gut, like I'd been bracing for a collision that never happened. "It was never a contest, Emily," Jesus said. "The error cannot survive the truth of the line." He turned to me. The horse and the fire were gone. It was just us in the gray again. "The people in the wilderness," I said. "The ones who ran. Did they see this?" "They saw my return," Jesus said. "That was enough for them." He reached out and touched the cover of my sketch pad. "You have to go back to the studio now." "I don't have anything finished," I said. I looked at my pad. It was empty. All the drawings of the city and the woman and the fire were gone. It was just blank, cold-pressed paper. The empty page is the most important part, Jesus said. He looked at me. His gaze was heavy. It felt like he was pressing a seal into my chest. Tell them what happens to the ones who stay to fight, he said. They won't listen, I said. They want to be heroes. Some will listen, Jesus said. Some will realize that their heroics are just another way of being in control. They will learn to let go of the pencil. I felt a sudden sharp pull in my chest. Wait, I said. The prayer, the one they shouldn't pray. What if I forget? You won't forget, Jesus said. He stepped back. The gray light started to swirl. It looked like water going down a drain. Remember the abomination, he said. When you see it, don't look at your things. Don't look at your walls. Don't even look at your prayers for victory. Just run. His voice was the last thing. It wasn't a whisper. It was a command that felt like it was written into my bones. Then the pain hit. It wasn't a transition, it was a crash. I was on my back. The ceiling was white, too white, fluorescent. The smell of bleach and old coffee was so strong I gagged. She's awake, someone said. A nurse. I saw the blue scrubs. I tried to reach for my sketch pad. My hand hit a metal rail. An IV line tugged at my skin. Where is it? I rasped. My voice sounded like someone had dragged it over gravel. Where's what, honey? The nurse asked. She was leaning over me, checking a monitor. The pad, the pencil. You were found in your studio, she said. Your husband brought your bag. It's in the locker. Just rest, Emily. Your heart stopped for almost 5 minutes. 5 minutes. It felt like I'd been gone for a season, like I'd watched a forest grow and burn down. I stayed in the hospital in Portland for 10 days. They called it an arrhythmia, a fluke. They gave me pills. They told me to avoid stress. David, my husband, brought Cooper to see me in the parking lot on the day I got out. The dog wouldn't stop licking my hands. He kept sniffing my fingers, like he could still smell the graphite from the other place. I went back to the studio on 12th Avenue. I sat at the table. I looked at the peony I had been drawing. It looked dead, not because it was wilting, but because it was just lines. It was a shell. I haven't picked up a pencil since then. I can't. Every time I try to draw, I think about the black lines behind the man in the suit. I think about the woman praying for strength to hold a wall that was already falling. I spend a lot of time looking at the mountains now. Mount Hood, the way it sits on the horizon. People ask me what I saw. They want me to tell them about the light. They want to hear that it's all going to be okay. I tell them about the prayer. I tell them that there is a moment coming where the most dangerous thing you can do is ask God for permission to stay. I tell them that when the time comes, you don't talk, you don't negotiate, you don't gather your supplies, you just run. I don't know how to explain the way the air feels in Portland lately. It feels thin, like the paper is getting worn out from too much erasing. I'm sitting here at my table, my hand is resting on the wood. I'm looking for the word for the way the light looks right before it's put out. It's not a word I have. Emily's account ends there, in a quiet studio, waiting for a signal. There's a detail she mentioned that kept me up last night. She talked about the negative space, the white parts of the map that the world ignores. In the study of NDEs, we see this often, this idea of a prepared place in the wilderness. It shows up in accounts from the 1970s, and it shows up in texts that are thousands of years old. Revelation 12 speaks about a woman fleeing into the wilderness to a place prepared by God for 1,260 days. It's a recurring pattern, a gap in the world's logic that only appears when everything else starts to burn. Emily isn't a theologian, she's an illustrator. She sees the world in terms of what stays and what fades. And that brings me back to one specific thing she told me in her letter. She said that since she came back to Portland, she can't look at a finished painting without seeing the fugitive pigments, the colors that are destined to disappear. If the world we've built is just a sketch on a page that's about to be turned, what are we actually holding on to? What happens to the people who stay in the city on 12th Avenue when the command is all ready to leave?